The Witcher 3 Platinum made me cry for several different reasons. Sometimes of joy, sometimes of sadness, and sometimes even of frustration. Now, I can't stress enough how much I love this game and how much of a masterpiece it is. I consider it one of my all-time favorites, but going for the Platinum is a horrendous journey. There are a total of 10 missable trophies, and this was one of the reasons it made me cry. Now, not only are there more missables than non-Platinum FIFA games on my account, but there are things that happen early on in the game that you would only realize is missable midway through the game. CD Projekt Red must have designed the trophy list the same way they designed Cyberpunk 2077. Throughout the whole game, I was constantly on edge in case there was something I forgot to do that would end up in me starting a new game. Now, originally I played this game for the first time back in 2015, and believe it or not, I didn't like it. If I could, I'd go back and slap past GuyFarruski. But then again, because the game was on Platinum, it means I got to play it again, so, you know, it wasn't a complete disaster. However, I don't really understand why I didn't enjoy it back then. I mean, the world is beautiful, the story is amazing, and the gameplay is fun. Not to mention, the side quests are pretty unique, and Gwent. Playing Gwent is more addictive than morphine. Maybe it was a deathmatch difficulty that put me off. Anyway, I did end up buying the Game of the Year edition a few months later, loved it, and platinumed that version. But today is different. Today we redeem past GuyFarruski's ignorance and stack The Witcher 3. This mission took me 346 hours over the course of 2 playthroughs within 7 years and 6 months. Keep in mind, a lot of this was idle time. This game is ranked as a 7 out of 10, so it's an A rank mission in GuyFarruski clan rating, and it was my platinum number 117. Now, back in 2015, I managed to pop 33 out of the 53 trophies, so this time round, I needed a whopping 19 trophies. You can tell I wasn't much of a trophy hunter back then. 1 gold, 4 silver, and 14 bronze stood between me and that beautiful platinum. I love this game so much, and playing it again just sparked more love for it. This is my mission to break the limits of the possible. Now drop my beat! Now, I did stream this game a couple of times, so every now and then you'll see my ugly mug on the bottom right of the screen. Sorry. By the way, this video does contain spoilers. As usual, I didn't upload any saves. Step 1 was to complete the story, while doing everything else I could. First things first, Deathmatch. I wanted this to be a single playthrough event, however, I instantly got a wake-up call. There's a certain skill that is incredibly OP for the Deathmatch difficulty. It's called Gourmet. Basically, what it does is regenerate your health for 20 real-time minutes. Unlucky for me, the skill is only available with the DLC. Since I was playing the release version, it wasn't an option. Yet another moment that made me cry. From this moment, I knew this was going to be a bigger challenge than when I platinumed the Game of the Year edition. Bet you thought I was going to say I platinumed Devil May Cry 5, weren't you? But my mom didn't raise no quitter, so away I went on my platinum mission. After an absolutely epic intro followed by another epic second intro with a very nice butt, I was immediately thrown into the deep end. I struggled with the very first fight against the ghouls and realized just how painful this was going to be without the gourmet skill. This time though, I managed to hold back my tears. I soon forgot all my problems when I got thrown into a game of Gwent. What a game. Now, I'm a pretty OCD type of guy when it comes to open world games, and I tend to try and do everything I possibly can. So I raided those notice boards as if they were a plate of jammy dodgers. After exploring for a while, I realized I could have popped 2 trophies at the very start of the game. So I started a new game. Again, I parried Vesemir 10 times in a row to pop the Kaemor and Train trophy, and then parried him, attacked, cast a sign, and threw a bomb all under 4 seconds to pop the What Was That trophy. With the old goat beaten, I loaded up my original save and carried on with my mission. Exploring this beautiful world led me to eventually pop the Power Overwhelming trophy for having all possible places of power bonuses active at the same time. Felt more powerful than Vault Boy Steve's pet. In this first area, there was a pesky griffin that was flying around. Must have been a Benfica fan because everyone in the area seemed to hate it. As a good Witcher, I casually killed it and kept its head just because I could. What we Witchers do, after all. This feat of bravery must have impressed the ex, because shortly after this, I was reunited with the naked bonds from the intro, Yennefer of Yengeberg. After a horse chase and a brief conversation with King Farquaad after his leg transplant, we found out that Ciri, our unofficial adopted daughter, which also happened to be Farquaad's real daughter, was in trouble. Now, I'd like to point this out here. Let's have a look at Ciri. Let's have a look at Farquaad. No, wrong picture. Let's have a look at Farquaad, and let's have a look at Geralt. Now, which one seems to be more likely the father? Makes me think Geralt isn't as sterile as we all think. Must have had a bit of fun with that old queen. Anyway, the first lead to find Ciri led to Velen, and what an absolutely charming place. As soon as you arrive, you instantly feel welcome. While spending time here, it was quick to see that people didn't like Geralt much.
Get away!
Of course, finding little Siri, no, not that one. This one is of highest importance. She's missing and can be in trouble after all. So as a lovable father, priorities had to be put in order. It was time to complete a side quest or 80, as well as play countless hours of Gwen, because that's what good dads do. After about 750 hours of avoiding paternity responsibilities, I eventually asked for information about Siri's whereabouts. In doing so, I triggered a flashback, and my god, is she OP. Not only can she dash, but she regenerates as well. Makes me kind of wonder how she got that scar on her face. Anyway, now that I'd started, I carried on my search for Siri. This led me to a certain witch called Kira Metz that did seem to like me for a change. As a reward for her letting me see her baps, I helped her kill a golem and one of the Wild Hunt's lackeys. Look at those Soulsborne skills. Beautiful swordplay. Kira must have been as impressed as I was after finishing him off, because as a thank you, she took me out for dinner and some sexy time as a dessert. But like every other one-night stand relationship, we had a bit of a fight. I can only assume it was because she got left unsatisfied. I'm sure Emma can relate. But Geralt is a sweet-talking master, so we managed to avoid a breakup, as well as a missable trophy later on. And between all the main quest heroics, I did some side quest heroics as well. Rescued a goat called Princess, saved someone from a fire, after looting the area, of course, and even spoke to a fat demon that was claiming to be a god. In my searches, I eventually met the Bloody Baron, who also had some information about Ciri. But nothing is for free in this world. In return, I helped him find his family that had disappeared. Shortly after some digging, literally, found out he had beaten the wife and threw their stillborn child in a ditch. What a guy. So realistically, the family hadn't gone missing. They ran away. Now the said stillborn child had become a monster called a botchling. This led me to baptize this lovely little baby, which was the spitting image of the father, and as a thank you, it led me to find the rest of the Baron's family. You'll see a very familiar favor for a favor pattern in this game. Once again though, priorities have to be set in place. I took a little detour to the barber so Geralt could get a Farruski style haircut. What a handsome boy. When I eventually found the daughter, she didn't want to go back home. I was so confused. Why wouldn't she want to have anything to do with a drunk, abusive father that secretly buries stillborn children in the backyard? With the daughter found, it was time to find the wife. This led me to a delicious trail of sweets similar to Hansel and Gretel, where I was forced to play hide and seek with some annoying kids that were being taken care of by a crazy old lady, find a voice for one of those avatar people, and a talking tree which needed my help. I killed it instead. I'd be having talking trees lying around. For my efforts, I got an ear as a reward. Can never have too many of those. As a romantic I am, I gave it to the local top model witches, which also wanted a piece of Geralt.
Ooh, I'd suck every last drop out of you.
The man is like a witch magnet. I would have said yes, but I found out they were going to eat Ciri when they took her in. That was a deal breaker for sure. Now remember that tree I killed? Turns out because I killed it, the kids I played hide and seek with were eaten by the top model. This again made me cry. Of laughter. Those kids were annoying as fuck. I regret nothing. Anyway, after informing the Baron where his wife was, he gave me a backstory how Ciri had saved his life from a basilisk and then fled to Novigrad. Can't really blame her with the Baron's track record. As an act of goodwill, I decided to help the Baron get his wife back, which we eventually found out was the crazy lady minding the kids. Although by the time we got there, the old dear had completely lost her marbles, even more than before.
Pie for dinner. Mood pie.
There was only one thing the Baron could do: take her to a healer in Arkham Asylum. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Joker's backstory. With the information that Ciri had fled to Novigrad, I made my way up there, where I was welcomed by this lovely image.
Son, I wanted only to live like you. Help me, kind.
What a place. I did get some inspiration from this though. I went out and burnt a bunch of people, then threw a dragon's bomb at them while they were burning to blow them up. But that is the evilest thing trophy a man's got to do. What a man's got to do. Anyway, it wasn't just the burning corpses in full view of everyone that made Novigrad stand out, it was all the goddamn loading screens. For some reason, regardless of what I was doing, the game was constantly loading here. If a cutscene was starting, loading screen. Changing dialogue, loading screen. Move 3 yards, loading screen. Felt like I was playing Vampire all over again. How infuriating. Yes, this made me cry. Of frustration. This carried on for most of my interactions in Novigrad, so the total hours I spent on this game were mostly because of loading screen.
Bullshit.
Thankfully, this didn't happen anywhere else in the game. Among all the burned bodies and loading screens, I bumped into another ex, Triss Merigold. Oh my god! Triss Merigold, aka Dominatrice, and an old friend, Zoltan, basically Gimli from The Lord of the Rings, but with a mohawk. After a good old bar fight, we started looking for Dandelion, which was also missing. Seems like everyone's missing in this game. Anyway, since he had information about Ciri, we had no choice but to look for him. So we spoke to all his bits on the side, one by one. Bruh. While at the same time exercising our Master of Disguise trait by becoming a sword instructor, a jockey, and even starting to play to show the amazing acting skills of a witcher.
The thing most foolish. Changing one's shape does not make one.
Man's got more jobs than Johnny Sins. Still didn't find Dandelion though. So all that was left to do was relax with a lovely show to take our mind off things.
Lilac sweet to dream.
Beautifully played. I knew I couldn't leave Dandelion waiting for too long. His life could be in danger after all. But first, some side questing. Geralt became the street fighting champion of Velen and Novigrad, which in turn earned him the name of... As a reward, we went to Primark and celebrated by getting some dank Witcher drip. And popped the Armed and Dangerous trophy. Had to fight an air-walking wyvern for it though. With this new sexy look and confidence, it was time to try and rekindle with the ex. So we took Triss to a ball. Every girl deserves to go to a ball. And there's usually alcohol in balls, so we could always slip a roofie in her drink if everything else failed. Anyway, we had a lovely chat about an ex of hers, and Geralt pulled out his best line.
Could even wear an eye patch and it'd look right.
This made Triss run away. Luckily, the roofie started to kick in and we managed to catch up.
Gotcha, bitch!
And then we kissed as she was about to pass out. Beautiful romantic reunion. She dropped the bombshell she was leaving the next day for good, so we got dumped. Story of my life. The next morning, we went to see her off and try a bit of creeping. Geralt just wasn't ready to let her go, so we begged her to stay by saying the magic words.
I love you.
Turns out Triss gives less fucks than Addit McDermott and left anyway.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Psych! She came back for a helping of Witcher loving.
If you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain.
The next day, I thought it was probably best to see if Dandelion is still breathing at least. So the search resumed. After killing a bunch of random people in different ways, I talked no jutsu'd enemies and convinced them to kill their friends for the enemy of my enemy trophy, pushed people off cliffs for the Humpty Dumpty trophy, got some of them to suffer from bleeding, poison, and burning all at the same time for the overkill trophy, and killed someone with a sword, another with a bomb, and another with fire to pop the triple threat trophy. With all the kills, I had enough skill points to unlock all skills in one skill tree and pop the Dendrologist trophy. Now that I'd proved I could kill people in style, it was time to find Dandelion. My search eventually led me to a guy called Horson Jr., who apparently loved to torture women. Great name, but no doubt a disturbed individual. Anyway, after we twisted his nipples for some information about Dandelion, he also coughed up information about Ciri. And once again, we see just how overpowered she is. What a beast. We ended up discovering that Ciri had gone to Skellige. God, it feels like Ciri's just taken a gap year for some traveling or something. We also found out that Dandelion was being held prisoner somewhere. Of course, since we got the information we needed, we gave good old Junior the whole treatment he deserved. With this knowledge, we found Dandelion. 1 out of 2 found. Not too bad. As a way of apologizing for getting sidetracked before saving him, Geralt agreed to act for him in order to win over the heart of a maiden.
No, not the Crimson Avenger.
God, I wish we just left him there. With Dandelion safe and sound, it was time to carry on searching for Ciri. Skellige was our next destination, which cost 1,000 crowns. Quite a hefty fee for having a drunk captain getting ambushed and then crashing against a rock. Well, you know, at least we got a refund. Jokes aside though, these isles have to be my favorite area in the whole game. It's such a beautiful place where every mountaintop is worthy of a wallpaper background. There's also some interesting characters in Skellige, like this guy. And this cow. Anyway, to add to the misery of getting to Skellige, we arrived during a funeral. For the king, no less. For some reason, the mistress decided to die on the boat with the guy. Bet he knows how to satisfy a woman. Emma?
Yeah?
If I died, would you die with me on the boat?
Hell no.
Luckily, Yennefer was there to offer some love and comfort, but of course, because we had told Triss the sacred words of love, we had to refuse this generous offer. Psych! Geralt's addiction to women is worse than your addiction to buying games without finishing the ones you already have. It doesn't end well. Honestly, I don't know why Yennefer was so pissed off. A room key is a common item. Anyway, without the distraction of sexual impulses, it meant we had more time to search for Ciri. You know, after helping everybody else in Skellige, of course. The sibling heirs to the Skellige throne were the first on the priority list. Gotta make friends in high places, you know. This led me to help the potential future king in a fight with a very ugly giant, probably from the cast of Game of Thrones. Once again, I used my Soulsborne skills here and stuck to the booty for an easy clap. And next it was time to help the potential queen, which led to lifting a curse. So as a good Witcher, I just stuck a baby in the oven. Problem solved. Since both siblings had now proven themselves worthy of the throne, they started bickering between them. I was hoping they'd fight to the death, but a bunch of angry bears barged in instead and started a fight, which settled then who was chosen to be the new ruler of Skellige. I'm sure she'll make a fine queen and will no doubt help me in times of need. Now that that was done, you know it was time to look for Ciri once again. We found out one of Ciri's exes had died nearby, so we called up Yennefer to do a bit of necromancy with a pinch of torture to see if we could find anything out.
What was she doing here? Speak!
Yeesh. Glad she's taking her frustrations out on that guy. Ciri could have done so much better anyway. While infiltrating his pervy mind, we see that Ciri had some downtime in between all the fleeing to get a naked sauna session in with the in-laws. Some things you just can't unsee. The only useful thing we really got from this dead guy is that Ciri was on the run. Again. So the search once again continues. So time to play some Gwent. Now believe it or not, throughout my time in the game, sex wasn't the main activity we delved in. Gwent was. We played a hell of a lot of Gwent. Geralt asked to play Gwent more often than I say a platinum Devil May Cry 5.
Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. So how about a game of Gwent? A game of Gwent would be best. Sure wouldn't mind a few rounds of Gwent. Play a game or two of Gwent. What would you say to a few rounds of Gwent?
We played anyone who remotely smelled like they would have a debt. And after destroying every single opponent that came our way, including in a tournament with a very sore loser, which I totally won without scum saving, it proved that Geralt was in fact the best Gwent player that ever lived. And since I'd already collected every other card, we popped the card collector trophy as well. Now back to Ciri. In the search we found a pretty little thing called Uma, which could potentially have been cursed Ciri. If this was in fact Ciri and we broke the curse, the Wild Hunt would be waiting for the great reveal and no doubt would attack. The Wild Hunt is the main bad guy, by the way, in case the game's title hadn't given it away. Since now I had all the Gwent cards and banged all the women, there was no reason to delay. It was time to talk to all the people I did favors for and use it against them so they would risk their lives in return. And to be fair, most of them said yes. God, I love the power of favors. Except Dijkstra.
So I don't owe you shit.
He was a dick. The Queen of Skellige also said no, but offered her brother instead. Looking back now, maybe putting the baby in the oven wasn't such a great idea. Her father also said no, but offered a sword instead. We could sure use the sword. Either way, after recruiting everyone I could, I popped the full crew trophy. Remember back in the beginning of the video where I said I had to sweet talk Kira Metz to avoid a missable trophy? This was it. With all the gang back together, there was only one thing left to do. Get absolutely bladdered with the Witcher boys. This naturally led to a bit of cosplaying with Yennefer's clothes. Lovely. The next morning, after some ibuprofen and some Barocca, we started some extensive torture on Uma. Of course, this was a job for none other than Yennefer. She loves that shit. Anyway, after a hell of a lot of screaming and vomiting, it turns out Uma wasn't Ciri after all. It was an elf sorcerer called Avila that was helping Ciri. Thank God. I imagine she would get a date for prom looking like that. In between all this, I reached level 28 where I quit 4 mutagens to pop the mutant trophy. After Avalak was feeling a bit more normal, he tells us where Ciri is, and we finally get to go find her. We started following a trusty Firefly, because why not? And after what seemed like a game of Sirius in another castle, we arrived at the cabin where she was hiding, only to find she was dead. Thinking back now, maybe we should have just put her as a priority after all. Jokes aside, the way this scene is played out, with the music and the facial expressions, even having played this before, the scene was still very emotional for me. And yes, it made me tear up a bit. It's just an amazing piece of narrative. What a tragic ending. Oh well, mistakes were made and lessons were learned. On with more questing. A witch's work is never done. Not really. Just like when I pretend to be normal in public, Ciri was only pretending to be dead. And with a loving embrace, we had finally, truly found Ciri. Not that one. And I cried again. After a little catch up and a subtle cyberpunk reference,
People there had metal in their heads, waged war from a distance, using things similar to megascopes.
we returned to Kaer Morhen for a beautiful reunion with everyone else, as well as some awkwardness for good measure. We knew we needed to prepare for the battle of our lives. And what a battle this was. Great hero cinematic fashion, we won with absolutely no casualties. Oh wait. In not so great cinematic fashion, we won with just one casualty. After witnessing poor Vesemir get snapped faster than a premature ejaculation, Ciri finally turned Super Saiyan and basically deafened everyone with her screams. The Wild Hunt had no choice but to flee. Not gonna lie, Vesemir's death did make me tear up as well. But his death will not be in vain! After what I can only assume could be the most beautiful funeral for those times, you know, it's basically just watching somebody burn, there was only one thing left to do. Have a snowball fight! And then, you know, start preparing to deliver some sweet revenge. Geralt and Ciri started by taking out the crones as well as Imlerith. Who Faced Who was decided by a trusty game of rock, paper, scissors. Always a classic. So as Ciri took out the crones, Geralt went after Imlerith. I noticed the crones are much uglier now than when we first met. Thankfully though, they turned back into their beautiful selves. Not gonna lie, I found this a fairly hard fight. They do a lot of damage and it's basically 3 against 1. But eventually, I got the win, even though Ciri let one of them get away. Incompetent child. I've just done it myself. Anyways, this was happening. Geralt versus Imlerith was about to begin. After interrupting Imlerith's succubus orgy, Geralt only had one thing on his mind: to destroy the man who killed his mentor. And was this man taught a lesson in the art of swordplay and dodging? Imlerith did not get away. Didn't even have time to give him a facelift before crushing his skull with his own weapon.
Fatality.
Stage 1 of revenge complete. With the Wild Hunt's army weakened, preparations for the final battle began. But first, more side questing. We start off by capturing a blind, fire-wielding, mind-controlling, fire elemental summoning sorceress, also known as Philippa. Next, it was time to assist in the assassination of a king, which was executed by the witch I captured herself. You know, just another day in Novigrad. And with that, I popped the Assassin of Kings trophy. Won every single street fight in the whole land to establish my overwhelming dominance everywhere. This included men, elves, a motherfucking bear, a spectre, which I had to let win, and a freaking troll. If this doesn't prove Geralt as the Floyd Mayweather of whatever time period this is set in, I don't know what will. Completed every Witcher contract available. I'm no slacker at my job. And in the process, popped the Woodland Spirit trophy. Thought I might as well finish it off by destroying all monster nests in Skellige as well to pop the Pest Control trophy. Joined Davalak to find an elf that would betray the Wild Hunt through multiple different worlds, including a desert world where the residents were those things from Starship Troopers, a dark poppy field poison gas filled one, very inviting, an underwater world I can only imagine it was Atlantis, an ice filled world where the blizzard slowly kills you, good job I had some chicken wings to keep that protein intake up, and finally a world that seemed normal. There was a lovely elfin woman being painted by the elf we were after. He's no Picasso, I must say. But at least we got what we were after. So mission accomplished. Then joined Yennefer in freeing a captured sorceress called Margarita. By the looks of it, she had one too many margaritas the night before, if I'm honest. And then after decreasing the population of Novigrad by 10%, Margarita was free. And then Yen came in at the end to take the glory. Typical. We also had to shut the screaming maniac from Skellige and this whole village. Shame. Kinda like them. Went on a search for a sunstone with Philippa, who was very good at DIY. What a woman. After a short light puzzle, which took me longer than I'd like to admit, we found the sunstone. I have no idea what it does. Maybe it's a free form of energy. And then after 4 hours of trying to leave the sunstone cave, we snooped around Avalak's house with Ciri, where we found an elven woman that tells us Avalak actually really hates Ciri. That motherfucker. So naturally, without gathering any evidence whatsoever that backs up these statements, we destroy his house. That's what I call great parenting. Now at this point throughout my mission, I realized I hadn't always put Ciri at the top of my priority list, so to make it up to her, we decided to do whatever she wanted to do. First things first, unfinished business. Remember that guy we killed that was torturing women? Turns out he's still alive, somehow. When we get to his hideout, there's a dude just tripping out in the corner and another scrub in the same spot on the floor for 6 hours straight. That spot must be really filthy. With Junior's crew busy, we find him upstairs. Although it turns out it was Dudu, a Doppler pretending to be Junior. So Junior is dead after all. I never doubted it for a second.
You stupid.
And finally, we went and buried Ciri's dead boyfriend. Well, ex-boyfriend, I suppose. He'd just been thrown in a random ditch with other random people, and after Ciri convinces everyone with a swift right hook, they agree that he deserves a grave. Talk no jutsu successful. That's my girl. With that, Ciri was happy and ready to face the Wild Hunt. With everything ready and all loose ends tied, it was finally time to set sail and end the Wild Hunt. The snow and ice were thick, the men terrified, and soon the Wild Hunt's army emerged. But a gleam of hope also emerged. Ciri would run no more. She would stay and fight. With her newfound Super Saiyan powers, she decimated everything in her path with just one thing in mind: to destroy Caranthir. Face to face with him, Ciri was always one step ahead the whole time, and as the final blow was about to be delivered, with Ciri injured, it was time for Geralt of Rivia himself to claim Caranthir's life. Caranthir summoned multiple ice golems to distract the Witcher, fucking annoying prick, but Geralt only had one target. Caranthir was the only thing on his mind, and with a flurry of majestic swings, Caranthir was no more. With all the generals gone, there was only one target left: the Wild Hunt himself. Geralt rushed aboard his ship, but as he arrived, he witnessed his dear friend perish. Serves him right for offering a fucking sword as help. And the final showdown was about to begin. The whole build-up of this story was coming to its climax. Geralt fought valiantly, having the upper hand the whole time. With the Wild Hunt feeling threatened, he threw Geralt into another dimension. Although disorientated, the Witcher kept his composure and fought smartly, even though he was clearly the underdog, using the Wild Hunt spells against him, slowly weakening him, and when the final blow was Geralt's for the taking, the game fucking glitched. What the fuck? Reload save, and we go again. But this time, no glitch. And finally, revenge was served. Although victory was certain, Geralt was surrounded by the Wild Hunt's army. It seemed the end for the Witcher. But Yennefer to the rescue. Turns out Avalak had an agenda of his own all along. We had to face yet another threat, the threat of betrayal. Why can't motherfuckers just stick to helping out? Anyway, Geralt and Yennefer quickly rushed to Ciri's aid while fireballs fell from the sky. There was still time for looting, of course. We grabbed some horses that were conveniently waiting at the perfect spot and made our way on horseback through the devastated land filled with monsters. As we edged closer to the tower, the ice was too harsh to traverse, so Yennefer had no choice but to cast a shield. And at the slowest pace I've ever seen, we approached the tower. Seriously though, Yennefer, could you jog any slower? The world is ending!
2,000 years later.
We finally reached the tower. Turns out Avalak wasn't betraying anyone. This was Ciri's choice. This was the only way to stop the next Ice Age. Not what it's called, but it'll do. Ciri is the only one that could stop this. But at the cost of her life. Like a good protective parent should, Geralt full-heartedly supported Ciri's decision and let her kill herself to save the world. While happy memories played in her head, she made the ultimate sacrifice. Taking inspiration from our Lord and Savior Vegeta, Ciri used the final explosion to end the threat and her life. The world was saved, but at what cost? Soon after the horrific events, we deliver the news to Lord Farquaad and break his spirits at the same time.
Did Cirilla say... Did she ask you to convey anything?
We didn't talk about you.
Mission accomplished. After stealing some pork from some peasants and getting a new sword as well as test swinging it, things returned to how they were. We set off on our way to continue our life as a lonely Witcher once again. Not really. We do spend our life as a Witcher, but not alone. With Ciri! I can only imagine Geralt gathered the 7 Dragon Balls to revive her. We give the Test Swung sword as a gift to Ciri for saving the world, and they both lived happily ever after. With that, I popped the Ran the Gauntlet and Walk the Path trophies for finishing the game on the different difficulties, and although the story was over, the Platinum mission was not. Step 2 was to get the Master Marksman's trophy. That's literally it. I lowered the difficulty to the easiest one, traveled over to the unfortunate camps around the world, and started headshotting everyone in sight, earning the title of Geralt Wick. After what seemed like an eternity in a bad headshot tracking hell, I eventually got to 50 headshots and popped the Master Marksman trophy, and of course, the limits of the possible Platinum trophy with it. What an absolute masterpiece of a game. I will love this game always. And from the amount of crying I did from start to finish in this game, I felt like Deku from My Hero Academia in Season 1. But wait! It wasn't all butterflies, sex, Gwent, and rainbows. I also died a bunch of times. Deathmatch isn't called that just to look good. Of course, as always, I deleted the game faster than how long into a back rub it takes me to pull my wife's pants down.